Kia ora, good evening. Invercargill police are investigating the alleged sexual assault of a 39-year-old woman in the early hours of this morning. The incident occurred at the back of the Collingwood Food Centre on North Road in Invercargill sometime between 2:30 and 4 o'clock this morning. Police would like to hear from anyone who saw a man acting suspiciously in the area of the Collingwood Food Centre between 2:40am and 4am this morning. Anyone with information that could assist the inquiry is asked to contact Detective Sergeant Grant Johnston of the Invercargill Police on 03 211 0400. Prime Minister John Key says there are around 80 Kiwis with connections to terror organisation ISIS, with at least half of that number being monitored by the Secret Service. Today, Mr Key outlined why the government is cancelling the passports of fighters wishing to join ISIS in Syria and Iraq. The Prime Minister also says that any New Zealand armed forces committed to the defeat of ISIS will be there to train Iraqi forces only and not take part in direct conflict.
As in other Western countries, ISIL has been successful in recruiting New Zealanders to its cause. Government agencies have a watch list of between 30 and 40 people of concern in the foreign fighter category. These are people in or from New Zealand who are in various ways participating in extremist behaviour. Some of those on the watch list have travelled to Syria to engage in fighting and remain there. Others are ISIL supporters who have tried to travel to Syria or to Iraq to fight and who have been prevented from leaving by cancellation of their passport. Some are people involved in funding terrorism, people who are trying to radicalise others, and people who themselves are becoming radicalised and interested in fighting for ISIL. While you will appreciate the limited nature of what I can say, it is important to note that there are individuals here in New Zealand who are attracted to carrying out domestic attacks of the type we have seen prevented in Australia and recently taken place in Canada. Our agencies do everything in their powers to prevent that happening here and to keep New Zealanders safe. I want to stress that none of these people are representatives of the New Zealand Muslim community as a whole. The Muslim community is a peaceful one, and one which makes a valuable contribution to New Zealand. I know the vast majority of Muslim New Zealanders are as distressed by the actions of ISIL and its violent extremist message as anyone else. As a government, we are doing what we can to prevent New Zealanders going off to fight for ISIL and brutally killing innocent civilians in Iraq and Syria. Some may ask why we cancel their passports and prevent them from travelling rather than just simply letting them go. But I think most New Zealanders understand that we do not want to have a reputation for exporting foreign terrorist fighters to places which already have more than enough.
There were signs overnight that international dairy prices might be stabilising, with the price index easing by just 0.3%.
This result follows a 1.4% gain in the last dairy trade auction a fortnight ago. Previous to that result, prices had fallen 50% since February. New Zealand's biggest dairy commodity export, whole milk powder, sold for $2,522 per tonne overnight. Fonterra has previously said it must reach $3,500 a tonne by March next year to ensure a forecast $5.30 per kilogram of milk solids returned at the farm gate. It's feared that many farmers will not break even if the return ends up around the $4.80 per kilogram mark predicted by some bank economists.
Rising employment is outpacing New Zealand's growing population, despite the largest annual migration rise in a decade. The construction industry accounted for almost half the annual employment growth, which, according to the latest labour force survey, shows 65.2 of every 100 adults in employment, while unemployment has fallen to 5.4%. 72,000 more people have been employed over the year, greater than the additional 64,000 people in the population. The average ordinary time wage for the September quarter was $28.62 per hour, with annual wage inflation at 1.6%. The figures are courtesy of Statistics New Zealand. Do stay with us after the break. One councillor's sinking feeling about the A to B yacht race, and Southern patients rate their care. Welcome back. The Auditor-General's office has ruled that there is no need for an inquiry into the City Council's failed foray into ocean yacht racing. Councillor Karen Arnold had submitted the report into the A to B yacht race prepared by Chief Executive Richard King to the Auditor-General's office for scrutiny. Hunter Andrews today asked Councillor Arnold what her A to B concerns had been.
Well, I was frustrated really with the amount of money that had been spent trying to pursue a race that I believe from the outset was doomed to fail. Of course, all this happened before I was elected to council last year, and I was really frustrated too that when I asked for a report about how it had all come about, that this money had been committed, up to $380,000 had been committed, and then all of a sudden it was announced earlier this year that it wouldn't be going ahead, and I really wanted to know why the council had finally decided that it was a no-goer. And it really turned out that the feasibility study that should have been done at the very beginning wasn't done until late last year, early this year.
The Auditor-General says, though, there was no lack of authority in the decision-making. The council had legitimate objectives in supporting the concept, and they were not alone in pursuing the idea because the central government was involved as well.
They were, but again, the central government had a lot of tags to its funding. It had KPIs, and it basically said we need a minimum number of entries from international yachties before we're prepared to support this any further. But one of the other things that frustrated me, I think, was the people that were involved in promoting this race. Murray Francis has been associated with the city before, but that was to do with the world's fastest Indian. That's a movie. By his own admission on Campbell Live show, he's had no experience whatsoever in yachting or organising a yachting regatta, especially something of this size.
The Auditor-General's office is happy, though, with all the notes and the report, in fact, submitted by the Chief Executive Richard King. Are you accepting of that, and will you be taking it any further, or is it just lessons learned? Is this a big lesson for the council?
I think at the end of the day, I accept what the Office of the Auditor-General's people have said. I won't be taking it further, but I think I am wanting to put this council on notice that doing things, by bits and, with lacking information and detail at the very start, again, and I do harp on about it, but if you haven't got quality information at the start, if you don't try and test it at the start, this is always going to happen, and we're going to be spending money that's not ours on ideas and dreams that may sound good but need to be tested before you really commit to them.
A mandatory survey of Southern DHB patient experience has revealed patients in the south are happy with the care received. The results of the survey for August-September show Southern DHB hospitals scored an overall mark of 8.2 to 8.4 in every category, classifying the patient experience as good or very good. 400 patients within each DHB were asked a wide range of questions covering communication, partnership, coordination and physical and emotional needs. The national survey scored each DHB with a mark out of 10 for each category. Staff at Southern DHB will use the survey results to inform and build on initiatives underway, including the new risk management system that's aimed at improving patient safety and experience of care. MP for Clutha Southland Todd Barclays enjoyed his first 5 weeks in Parliament, along with the constituency work within his geographically challenging electorate. Hunter Andrews spoke to the busy first-time MP at the weekend's opening of Stage 1 of the Round the Mountain Cycle Trail in Lumsden.
Yeah, it's been great. We've had a 2-week induction. Now I'm just focusing on getting offices set up and seeing constituents. I've had quite a few full days of constituent meetings, and I'm just getting around as much as I can now. So I'm here today, an event with the Lumsden Pool after this, and then Rhododendron show on in Gore tomorrow. So,
What is it like finding that staff? It's a side of being an MP we don't often see. You've got a lot of offices around this area. Has that been a problem? Is the talent out there to meet your needs?
Yeah, it's great. I think it's a bit of, we get invited to a lot of things, but also just reading the newspapers and seeing what's on, and it's kind of showing support wherever possible. So, enjoying it.
What issues have come up in the constituency since you've taken office? Anything that's surprising?
There's the Environment Southland's proposed changes on the coal burners, but that's a local government issue that the council needs to work through. So I'm just channeling constituents towards the submission process, which I understand closes on Monday. So I think that's they've got to go through that process, and the council will make a decision after that.
Has that been a big issue with constituents?
Well, particularly in the Gore area, but the council's running a robust process, submission process, which is good, and I think we need to take comfort in the fact that they are going out and listening to the views of people. But and they will go through that process of taking into consideration the views of the public, and then make a decision after that.
Parliament itself, for what select committees are you seated on?
On education and science, and on primary production.
And those were the ones you'd indicated you'd like?
I think they're pretty important for the electorate. I worked for the Education Minister as an advisor for a couple of years, so I'm particularly interested in the education space. The government's doing a lot of great work in vocational pathways, so the transition between secondary into vocational training, tertiary, and into the workforce, and that's an area I've got an interest in. So, from primary production perspective, it's pretty important for Clutha Southland. The rural farm base is still the backbone of our local economy. It supports towns such as Lumsden and Dipton, Athol. So, very excited.
A quarter of Kiwi males claim they're the happiest and healthiest they've ever been, according to the Movember Man Files. Men are encouraged to grow a moustache in November to spark conversation about their health. Currently, just 4% of our staunch Kiwi males reach out to other men for help about feeling low or depressed. However, 10% would take immediate medical action for a mental health problem. Research shows they approach their physical health far more willingly, with 16% more likely to contact GPs about physical health issues. It also shows the grass is greener mentality is in full force, with over half of the men surveyed believing they'll be happier and healthier in the future. Up next on Sport, Joseph Romanos talks cricket. That's after the weather next. From the News team, good night.